What's up? What's up? What's up? Man, listen, how is everybody doing this evening? Listen, I hope that you all are doing phenomenal, that God is blessing your life tonight. And listen, it is my prayer that you are experiencing the favor of God on your life like you've never experienced it before. Y'all know me. I'm excited about tonight. This is a big night for me. I'm going to tell you why, because my sister, my friend, is with us on tonight, and we're going to have an awesome conversation. Y'all, listen, we have been in conversation after conversation this last month, with the exception of last week, because many of you experienced, just like I did, power outages. It is my prayer that even with the winter storm that passed over Houston, Texas, actually over Texas on last week, it is my prayer that you are still able to open your eyes and count all of the many blessings that God has bestowed upon you and upon your household, even in the midst of power outages and gas on and off and water on and off and all of these things all of the amenities that we may tend to take for granted from time to time, but that you found God's favor and God's blessing in all of this, and that you can see God working in your life. It is my prayer that you will be progressive, and that if you experience burst pipes or whatever you may have experienced on last week, that God will bless you with the resources to get everything taken care of so you can move forward. Why? Because this year is the year of being focused forward. We're being focused forward this year, and I am glad. Listen, I want to stop and say thank you to everybody that's tuning in tonight. My name is Pastor Stephen Goldsmith. I'm the lead pastor at Journey of Faith United Methodist Church right here in Humble, Texas, which is a near suburb of Houston, Texas. And so I want to thank you for tuning in to this live stream on tonight. As a matter of fact, I want to ask you to do me a favor. If you would, take some time and share this stream on your page with somebody. Here's why. Because somebody needs to hear this conversation on tonight. Listen, we started out this Boss Up Conversations at the top of this month with two good friends of mine, Mr. Larry Roberts and Mr. Derek Ray. And now we are ending these Boss Up Conversations with none other than my friend, Miss Michelle Williams of Destiny's Child. And so I want to stop and personally thank her once and again for taking time out of her schedule to join me virtually to be a part of this magnificent forum, because I believe that there's going to be some wonderful encouragement for all of you on tonight as we talk about her journey. Being focused forward is all about commitment. It's about being focused, and it's about learning how to focus and move forward. And so we're going to talk about some of that stuff tonight. So y'all hang on to your seats, put your seatbelt on. If you got your popcorn, you got your popcorn. Maybe you got something to drink, you got some water, you got something to drink. That's all great and dandy, because it's about to go down up in here. All right. So listen, without further ado, I want to introduce to you all my friend, my sister, Miss Michelle Williams. Michelle, thank you for being with me on tonight. I think you're on mute. There she is.
Thank you so much for having me, Pastor Goldsmith. It is a joy to be here. Certainly excited, certainly proud of you and all that God has been doing in your life. Anybody that's from the hometown of Rockford, I don't know if many of us are very surprised that you're sitting in the seat that you are in. So thanks for having me. Looking like your daddy.
Oh, here you go. Stop.
The Right Reverend Goldsmith. Come on, somebody.
Right. Listen, some of y'all don't. My daddy's a pastor, and I was the one, crazy enough what she just said. So growing up in school, I was always the one that ended up having to say prayers whenever a prayer was needed at school. They would look at me and say, Stevie, come on, pray us in. Stevie, come on, say a prayer. or if it wasn't me, maybe it was my brother. But we always ended up because we were the church kids,
And
right?
yes.
So y'all, we're from Rockford. We hometown, grew up together. I mean, going all the way back to kindergarten at McIntosh Elementary School. Lord have mercy. Yeah, we just went back 40 years.
Man, don't tell it.
I
Wow.
know. McIntosh Elementary School, where Miss Price was our principal. You remember Miss Price? Oh my
I
goodness.
do remember Miss Price. Was she the tall black lady?
Oh, that was
Was it Faye? Um, was it Jackson? What was her
I think
name?
it was Jackson, Miss Jackson.
She
Yes.
was tall, slender, and first of
Yep.
all, I was like, wow, we have a black
Yeah, we had a
principal.
black principal. That was my, and it was a black female principal at that,
Yes,
right? Which was
yes,
big in the 80s. Okay, that was
yes.
major to see a
So
black
huge.
principal. And so Miss Price, she didn't play with us. She held us accountable. As a matter of fact, I got a couple paddles from her because I was bad. Speaking of which, um, um, this one right here used to get me in trouble. She would, whenever I was being acting up in school, she would see my mother in a store somewhere and tell my mother, Miss Goldsmith, I still was the acting up in class today. My mother would come home, y'all, and she
Was
would
I
say,
a snitch?
yes.
Oh, I'm not like that today. I've learned. I've learned. I'm not a snitch.
Oh, it was great though because it kept me on my P's and Q's. I had to be good. I had to be good.
And look
And
what look where you are now. The Lord has been
look where
kind.
we are now. Look where
Look.
we are now. Well, I'm so glad you all that we had this opportunity. As we said, we grew up together, going back to Rockville, Illinois. And so tonight, Ms. Michelle, as we just go ahead and move on in, you have had a tremendous journey, and I want to say I'm so proud of you. I've said this to you before, and I get to say it now publicly. How proud I am of you and your journey, and just how far you have come. And it is a blessing knowing where we started on the west end of Rockford,
Mm-hmm.
and how you have been able to travel the world and see so much that I'm sure I know that there's something that you're going to say tonight that's going to be a blessing to everyone. So, without further ado, let's talk about that. Let's talk
Yeah.
about your journey from Rockford, and we had an opportunity to sit with our young people just prior to coming on here. And one of the questions that was raised was, where did you get your start? She started in music. And so would you just take some time to talk about your journey, where
Mm-hmm.
you started and how that led you to Destiny's Child?
Well, thank you again for having me. I got my start home in Rockford, Illinois. I got my start in church, in St. Paul Church of God in Christ. There were also some people who saw some things outside of our church, and that's Miss Karen Portis,
Mm-hmm.
Reverend Steve Bland, Carl Cole, and Wanda Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember we had the Martin Luther King Youth Unity Choir, and Reverend Bland really kind of put me up there,
Push. Mm-hmm.
pushed me in directing. Miss Portis and Carl Cole in the West Middle School choir really pushed me, and of course in my home church, our minister of music, Stan Penix, Lynn Penix,
Name Penix. Yep.
um, really gave me the opportunity to shine.
Yep.
Well, not shine. They gave me the opportunity to do what I do. I mean, you don't say shine because that's not, you don't do what you do to shine in church. You do it.
Shine.
You know what I mean? So that's where I got my start. I was also in two gospel groups. One with my sister and some friends. We
Yep.
called ourselves United Harmony, and then there was another gospel group called Chosen Expression. And so I was kind of getting my start. And yes, I was in the little kids choir growing up, just kind of a progression. And I didn't I it's crazy because I wrote in my senior book that I wanted to be a successful recording artist and a producer, but then I wanted to be a hospital administrator. But I saw myself being successful in like in the medical field or in the criminal justice field before I saw myself being successful in music. But I wrote both of those things down.
Mhm,
But the
mhm,
crazy thing is that um writing both of those things down, I remember even saying, but this may change. And so who would have known that what I thought I would have had my success in flipped, but it was still something I wrote down.
mhm.
So I'm a believer in writing things down.
Now, now, the Bible says, write the vision, right, Habakkuk? I
Come
believe
on.
it's Habakkuk 4:4. The Bible
Yep.
says, write the vision, make it plain. Though the vision tarry, it's only for a while. It's
Hmm.
important for us to document what God shows us. I believe that God gives us glimpses of what our future is, what our destiny, our purpose is. And I believe it's important for us to document that because when we write it down, in essence, that becomes a contract, if you will, for God.
Wow.
And I believe that in that writing down, God remembers because we're always able. I can't tell you the number. I actually have. It's crazy you said this. I wasn't even thinking about this. I have a journal here, literally right here, that I write in all the time, and I'm always writing whatever God gives me. I write it in here, and when I tell you it never fails, the stuff always comes back. There's some things in here that I've seen for my life
Yeah.
that I'm pretty sure when it begins to manifest, right,
Hmm.
I will be able to go back and look at this book here, and I'll be able to see, man, I wrote that down. God gave me that in the year 2020. He gave me that in the year
Yeah.
2021.
Well, I
Uh,
even go as far as writing stuff on my mirrors.
yeah,
I even have I have a dry erase board that I write things down to, and I speak that stuff every single day. So it might look a little weird to folks that might come in or people that assist me from time to time, but it's like you'll be able to say you saw it
you
when
saw it. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
So speaking of that, one of the things that you've been doing lately is you've been talking about that on your Instagram page. You've been talking
Mhm.
about how daily you make declarations, right? There are certain declarations you make. One of the ones that I love and it's just been really blessing me is you talk about how faith moves, not fear, right? Like
Yeah.
that thing just deposited in my spirit, and I've not been able to let it go because I
Wow.
think that a lot of people, um, I think a lot of people don't realize that faith is about moving. Could you talk about that?
Well, faith, it's either you're going to do faith moves or fear moves.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
most of the time, um,
Hey.
let's not act like fear is not. If you, there are some people who see a bug or a spider and
Mm-hmm,
fear, they just get scared. So
mm-hmm,
I'm not going to sit up here and act like there's some opportunities that I have where um maybe some fear comes on, but it's like you got to nip it in the bud. I don't let it consume me. I think on a human level, fear is a natural legitimate response
mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm,
something.
mm-hmm.
Okay, people are afraid of roller coasters.
Yeah.
It's so I won't say that it's something that's just so easy, but your faith almost has to supersede and be bigger than the fear. So when I mean faith moves, not fear. It's trusting God, trusting that if God has told you to do something, He's
Mm-hmm,
not going to let you down. He's not going to let you fail. He's not going to put something in your way to to basically harm you. That's not what he does. So I think that's how you can kind of really lessen the fear to the point where when he begins to speak, you move anyway before fear even gets a chance
It gets a chance. Yeah.
to even find you.
Yeah. It is when you said that, I got the imagery of jumping into jumping. You know how some people like to go to a cliff at the ocean, and they make that jump into into the ocean or into a river, or some form of
Mm-hmm.
water, right? Um, it is, you got there to the edge and let's go ahead and jump without thinking about it, and I think often you're right, you have to take that jump. That's really, in essence, what faith is,
It's what it
where
is. Yeah.
you make the leap nervous, you might make the leap fearful, but you made the leap. Uh, the issue is for the person that allows the fear to arrest them where they don't make the jump.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you
Right.
start overthinking. Well, what if this
Mhm.
happens? What if this fails? Or what if somebody talks about me? Or what if this? Or what if I find out that I wasn't supposed to do it? Well, God can redirect you.
Yeah.
It's like a GPS. You turn right when you were supposed to turn left, but the GPS kind of redirects you and gets you back to where you were
Right.
originally, where your intended destination.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of us, we don't make moves too when we know we heard God clearly, but we allow the fear of people and what they may have to say, or how am I going to look?
Mhm.
I'd rather you look prosperous after doing what he told you to do than
Right.
sitting back wishing with that spirit of regret on you for the rest of your life because you didn't make that faith move.
Because you didn't make that faith move. So that touches on this whole idea about so this thing that we have, focus forward, right?
I
Our
want that
church
shirt you're wearing too,
is
by the
on.
way.
You got it. I
Thank
got you
you.
on. Oh yeah,
All right.
I'm gonna send it to you.
Thank you.
So we are. The Apostle Paul says, Philippians chapter 3, verse 14. I press toward this very familiar passage, right? I press toward the mark for the prize of the high call, which is in Christ Jesus, right? That word simply means, the word press
Come on.
is a word that means to strain. It means to struggle, right? And so what Paul essentially is saying is that life will throw challenges at you. Life will throw some things at you. You're going to experience some things. It's not always going to flow the way that you hoped for it to flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even in all of those, you have to constantly be pushing toward the goal. And I think when you talked about writing down a goal, you
Mm-hmm.
see that goal. You're
Yeah.
able, if you have that goal stuck somewhere on a mirror in your bathroom, or if you have it on a dry erase board, you're constantly pushing no matter what challenges
Yeah.
you experience, right?
And you
You're
don't
constantly,
stop
yeah,
till you get there.
you don't stop until you get there.
Mm-hmm.
And in essence, what that means, is that you're making that faith move, right? You're making that faith move. So, um, how have you found yourself from a commitment standpoint, right? How have you found yourself um, um, in those times where you were gripped with anxiety, you were gripped with
Mm-hmm.
fear about,
Yeah.
maybe doing something really big.
Mm-hmm.
How did you speak to yourself? How did you encourage yourself? The Bible says that David encouraged himself in the Lord, right?
Yeah.
How did Miss Michelle find herself encouraging herself in those times?
Knowing that most of the time in my line of work, in your line of work too, as a pastor, because you have to prep for what you do on a Sunday morning. You have to prep for Bible study.
Yep.
So you're going to get that little bit of anxiety, but you got to know, oh, I'm built for this.
Yeah.
Not only am I built for this, I prepped for this. I
Yeah.
prepared. I studied.
Yeah.
I rehearsed.
Yeah.
I did what I'm supposed to do.
Mhm.
So it's gonna you're gonna feel like those nerves. Sometimes I'm like, okay, when I get on stage, after about 30 seconds, if I'm still alive, then I just go and keep blazing. I'm sure with you're like, okay, if I read once I get through this prayer, I read this first scripture. Okay, I'm good. So for me, it's knowing that I prepped for this, knowing that I'm built for this. One of the young ladies on our call together before with your young people, she asked me about my insecurities. And I forgot to mention about time and how time helped with those insecurities. Time helped, maturity helped, and knowing once again that, okay, God, you put me here, you're using me, and so I'm okay.
Yeah.
But anxiety is it can be a monster. If you want to just talk about practical, um and anxiety, so many people have so much anxiety about things that 99% are not going to happen, because anxiety is rooted in fear, false evidence appearing real.
Real. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
anxiety leads to so much. Anxiety leads to physical ailments, high blood pressure, heart problems. And if it goes unchecked, can lead to some depression, or depression can lead to some
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people wrestling with, right, with the anxiety, especially,
I
right,
bet you right now.
in this pandemic,
Well,
Um,
not only that, what was
Go
going
ahead.
on in Houston in
Oh yeah.
Texas, period, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, I do
Oh
want to encourage people that anxiety is kind of it is almost I'm really studying responses and what's a legitimate response and what's a natural response, because you talking about going without water for days, power for days. I'm gonna be a little anxious
anxious.
because
Yeah, I just talked to somebody today, earlier today. Let me cut you off.
yeah, you're okay.
Who has been without water because they had burst pipes for 8 days now. And is wrestling with wrestling with not having that amenity, right, to be able to go. Just something as
Yeah,
simple as that, right?
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so I don't want anyone to think that I'm minimizing what anxiety is, because it comes, and depression can be a response. Depression, you can be depressed right now because maybe with going without power for 8 days, or maybe you missed an assignment that you were supposed to get done, although your line of work, or hopefully your learning institution, is understanding, okay, you lost power, okay, but to know that your way of life that you once knew it is gone, and you don't know if it's coming back.
Yeah.
The pandemic right now, people lost jobs, people lost lives, and it came kind of almost so unexpected. Depression and anxiety would be a response to those situations.
Yeah, yeah. You on your so you all, if y'all have not checked this out, you need to check it out. It is absolutely amazing. I have been enjoying it from Dr. Oz to Sarah Jakes Roberts to it's how I cannot say her name, Malcolm X's daughter.
Oh, Ilyasa
Um,
Shabazz.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I will mess it up. All right. Dr. Darius Daniels. And all of these podcasts have been absolutely empowering and amazing. If y'all have not checked her podcast out, y'all need to check it out on iHeartRadio, whatever podcast platform you listen to, iTunes, you can get it there. However, Michelle takes some time in this podcast, and she opens up about depression. She opens up, and begins to talk with her guests about mental health challenges, and how we address that, especially given the pandemic has caused so many people to have to be isolated, right? And with that isolation, where I think essentially one of the things that we have to understand as people is that God created us for community, right?
Yeah. For
And because
connection
God,
too. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
and because God created us for community, our social life, when you tell us we cannot social distance, what you have seen is pushbacks on that across not just across the nation, but around the world, right? Where people are like, no, I don't want to social distance. No, I don't want to wear a mask because I want to be able to communicate, right? Because we were designed to do that. However, in your podcast, you've addressed so many different things, but talk about that, how you have been encouraging folk during this time of pandemic and isolation and social distancing, with your story. Can you talk about that?
Well, listen, there are a few folks like me who like to be home anyway. Believe
Yeah.
it or not, when you travel a lot, sometimes you kind of we use our homes to recharge.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. As a matter of fact, I don't mean to, TT. There it is. There it is, y'all. Okay, I just called her first name. All right.
It's
So,
okay.
um, I'll never forget before I did my first tour, it was JJ Smith. You know JJ.
Yeah, bass player.
JJ Smith, who's a big brother of ours. He's a bass player, has traveled the world, played for everybody and their mama. And JJ came home to Chicago one time and we were talking. JJ said, I'm tired of the road. I'm getting tired of the road. And I said, you're getting tired? Here I was, a young buck. I'm like, I want to get on the
You want
road.
to go. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he said, man, the road gets old, He says, and so often, and he had gotten married. That's part of it too. He was, wanting to be with his wife more. And I'll never forget, he said, man, there's nothing like being able to be home, because home represents your place of solace, your place of restoration. And I was like, wow, you just messed me up. And so I've always carried that with me, and now I pass that on to musicians. But as you were saying,
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. So, I love being home. And so I was able to make home work for me. I finished my book that comes out May 25th. I started a podcast. It was like, what can I do from home that I love so much?
Yeah.
But I do have compassion for people who they need others to recharge. Some
Mm-hmm.
people feed off others. And
Mm-hmm.
there are some people who do not know how to handle themselves having
Yeah.
to be home. And so I think being home and being isolated, I think it also made people have to really be home with themselves internally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It made you have to really sit in your funk.
Ooh.
It made you have to sit and say, I'm not as good as I thought I was emotionally. Because I'm learning from people who are saying, especially that people that have been married, there are people that are married, you work 8 to 12 hour shifts. So you get to go home. I mean, you get to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
You come home, you eat dinner, you act like you like each other for about an hour or two. You act like you like your kids for about an hour or
For
two.
about an hour, right?
You
Yeah.
go your separate ways to try to watch TV or go to the basement in your man cave.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, you go to bed.
Yeah.
That's
For a
the way
few
your
hours.
life for a few hours. That's the way your life was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And if you
Yeah.
like your wife or husband, you might even have a little bit of communion, a little fellowship.
Well,
You might. You might.
you
Okay.
might. Yeah.
You might.
Yeah.
But now you add on those extra 8 to 12 hours extra of being home with each
Mm-hmm.
other.
Yeah. 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 And statistics says that domestic violence skyrocketed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For that very reason, because now you're forced to be, you can't, you're going to work, or whatever your escape was outside of the home
Mm-hmm.
was not accessible to you. I'll tell
Yeah.
you another thing. One of the things that is heartbreaking for me is that in the state of Texas alone, it is reported that some 250,000 students since this pandemic began have disappeared, not enrolled in. Yes, 200, a quarter million children have disappeared. Right now, if children don't have, if they don't have something constructive like being in school and having given homework assignments is another. When they don't have anything constructive like that to do, what will they do? They'll find themselves getting into other things that they don't necessarily need to be involved with, right? Or then some are probably exposed to some conditions at home that, back to what you said, maybe being in many of them, those children that are come from less underserved communities, are probably exposed to some very intense situations, with family, maybe domestically speaking, domestic violence, this, that, and other, which can also drive up depression levels and, all of this. So, it's amazing. It's amazing to see, to in this pandemic, that you have been able to really look and say, how can I love that. How can I help people? How can I empower folks? Right. And that's what I think is so refreshing about the episodes with checking in.
And it was also to, people are starting to kind of get back to work now. So it's giving people something to listen to. And I know in the beginning of the pandemic, so many people, and some people are just trying to survive.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Yeah. But you had other people telling people, no, this is the time for you to write that book. This is the time for you to do those things and step out into the deep into what God has called you to do. And there are some people who were trying to get used to this way of life, because not only did I become a wife and mother, I also had to become your teacher. I'm homeschooling these kids now. So there is so stop trying to tell somebody to try to become Oprah and have Oprah's empire during this pandemic. Some people were trying to figure things out and trying to survive. Now I'm praying that, kind of a year in, it's like, okay, is it getting better for people? Or how can you say, okay, if this has to go another year, because what you don't want to do either is you don't want to lose yourself. How can you still do fun things with your children, and your spouses? How can you still take care of you? Have you been able to pray? You know what I mean? And so this has been a lot. It's been a lot for people. And, my heart goes out. My heart truly goes out to those who were kind of thrust into a position of, especially having to homeschool your kids, that you were like, I was glad I could send my kids to school.
Right. So we have a number of educators in our congregation, and from principals to teachers to TAs, and one of the main things that we have heard is that with some of those students that are missing, one of the challenges already is for the student that depends on having lunch, at school, that doesn't have a meal at home. They're missing out on that, whereas pre the pandemic, the struggle was, trying to get the child to focus on, what you were trying to teach them. But as I said to them last week, a child can't focus on what you're trying to say when their stomach is speaking louder, you know what I mean, than what you have to say. And so I think that we are, I think you're right, that we cannot be in this thing and just assume that everybody is just gonna get over it and move through it,
Yeah.
uh, um, I wanted to go back to something that you talked about, because you
Okay.
talked about God's timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how God's timing is everything. Her brother, Aaron, who is her big brother, he's my big brother, my best friend. We were roommates in college. And I look up to him, I've been copying his chords when I learned how to play keys, shoot, from since I was about 8 years old. And he had a production company. And this is where I first learned about this Greek word, right? He has a production company called Kairos Productions. Okay. And when he first told me about Kairos Productions, I was like, dude, that is so dope. Kairos is a Greek word that simply means God's timing. And as a producer who sequences music and produces drum tracks and all of that to make it all come together, in essence, what he's saying is that it's everything works in God's timing. And I think that we're in a time right now, right, with this pandemic, where God wants all of us to stop and see what he's doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
See what he's doing. How is he guiding us? And that has always really stuck with me. The importance of being able to stop and identify, what is God doing in this time? What is doing in this
Yeah.
moment? And you hit that, right, about God's timing, where folk were stuck at home, and there were people that, instead of praying, or maybe spending time talking to God, started trying to replace that time with other things,
Mm-hmm.
to do. So, I think that, I have always lived on God's kairos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
That's so
thankful
good.
to Aaron, who was actually, and Aaron was in my wedding too. I didn't think about that.
Aw.
But I'm always thankful for him introducing me to that
To
word,
that.
kairos,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
God's timing. Um, Speaking of God's timing, what do you see? What do you have going on these days outside
Aw.
of the podcast? What's going on with Miss Michelle?
Mm-hmm. Well, I do have the podcast. It comes out every Tuesday on the Black Effect Podcast Network, which is, if y'all are familiar with the Breakfast Club, that is Charlemagne's podcast network, which can be found on iHeartRadio and wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and my book. I just
The
we just
book,
kind of yeah.
the book.
The book is called Checking In as well. And so I called it Checking In because, there was a moment where, of course, I know God and, but there are moments where I stopped checking in with God, especially one of my favorite scriptures was Proverbs 3, 5, and Proverbs 3 and 6, and all thy ways acknowledge him and he'll
Acknowledge
direct your
him.
path.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
form of checking in.
uh-huh.
God, what do you think about this? But because I thought so many good things were happening, still I didn't have to check in. So I
Yeah.
remember, like, no, you got to check in with God. You got to check in with yourself, and you've got to check in with others, especially during
Oh,
this
whoa,
time.
whoa, 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 whoa! Don't just drive past that.
What I
You
do,
got
I
to
didn't
check.
even do.
You
Mhm.
got to check in with God. You got to
Yeah.
check in with yourself,
Yes.
and you got to check in with others.
Yeah.
Those are three levels of accountability,
Ooh. Come
right?
on, man. That's
Those are
good.
those are three levels of accountability. And you know
The
what?
best
So often,
accountability.
yes, yes, right. And so
Mm-hmm.
often, I think many of us don't want we don't want that accountability, right?
Yeah, you talking right. Ooh, and
Oh
you
my,
can't go through life without it.
yeah, you can't, you can't.
And those who
It's
don't want accountability, it's because somebody's gonna check you on some of
yeah,
your foolishness.
foolishness. Yeah, real
It's what
talk,
it is. That's
real
really what
talk.
it is.
But tough
So
love ain't
yeah,
hurt nobody.
Tough love has not hurt anybody. Tough love makes you go further than
Yeah,
flattery.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Oh my
flattery
goodness.
is flat. At the end of the day, it just goes flat. You
Right,
go flat.
right.
So yeah, and that book comes out May 25th. I've actually been in the studio all week doing the audio book, because there will be an audio book portion
Cool.
of it. And so, and I'm excited to do more writing. I'm excited to do more speaking. Um, there is more television in the works. There's so much more in the works. I hope there might be some more music coming.
Coming. Yeah,
And so I'm excited about that. And just really taking this time. There's a little bit of transition going on for me because I kind of know where God has me headed. So I'm
yeah.
kind of transitioning my business and my life, to that area. And you guys will see more of what that entails soon.
Um, y'all, I want to also make sure to talk about while she has the podcast going on. The book is coming out. Listen, this book is going. Listen, I'm so y'all don't understand how proud of this girl right here that I am. I'm so proud of her uh, because if you knew where we came from and the side of town that we came from, it is only because of the foundation that we have in our families
Hmm.
that we transcended the statistics that we could have very easily been a part of in the West End of Rockford, Illinois. Trust me, we could have been a part of that statistic,
Yeah.
but by the grace of God, we were
Amen.
able to get out and able to go on and do positive things. So I'm extremely proud of what she's doing and how she is reaching back and how she's impacting the lives of people everywhere, young, old, middle age, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. I mean, it is just amazing to see. And so I want you all to mark your calendars. You said May 25th.
May 25th.
May 25th.
Yeah. Yeah. May
Um,
25th.
her book will be out. And for those of you that are more technologically savvy, you can get the audio book, whether you're doing that via Amazon, a Kindle, or if you
Yup.
want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
through iBooks, whatever. I encourage you to get this book. I know this is going to be a very valuable resource to you. And maybe you want to get it as a gift for somebody else, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
it is here we go back to the book, back to Habakkuk 4:4, write the vision,
Mm.
make it plain. And she has taken time to chronicle her story, her journey in this resource. And
Yeah.
I believe it's going to be a valuable blessing to your life. Now, I
Wow.
can't stop there because podcast, the book, the audio book, then also she has just released a new line um, uh, called. Well, I'm gonna let you
Believe.
talk about
Yeah.
that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so back in 2013, 2014ish, I had a bedding line called Believe, and so we expanded it into home decor, and so I've released a line of candles.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so what I did was, there were people who kind of really laughed. Yeah, you can pull up Believe by Michelle on Instagram, or believebymichelle.com. Whatever your choosing is. Thank
Yep.
y'all so much. Y'all are on it. Y'all are on it. Yes, there it is.
There it is.
There it is. And so this line came about. I just remember um when Destiny's Child ended, I knew what I wanted my life to be, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I just remember telling a few people what I wanted. And this, what you see now, is part of it. And
Mm-hmm.
those folks, they laughed at me. They literally laughed at me.
Wow.
But God sent another team of people that helped bring it to pass. And I called it Believe because I never stopped believing. I never stopped believing that what you see right now is what I would be able to have. There are going to be some people who laugh at you along the way, and you just got to have faith and just know that you're going to be able to do those things that are in your heart to do. And Steve, I can imagine did you have people laughing at you when you told them you were going to go to Texas and be a pastor?
Oh, yeah. That was the joke of the century. Some folk felt like I wasn't going to make it. And did God really tell you? Are you sure that God told you, to leave Texas? I have stories for days on that. Yeah.
And look where we are.
Look where we
Look
are.
where you are,
Look where we are.
doing well. We're talking with each other tonight. So this is an encouragement to you too, Steve, Pastor Goldsmith, to keep believing that God still has amazing things for your ministry, your wife and children. Like, come on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm excited for you, bro, to keep going. And I can't wait to get down there and see y'all in person one of these good old
Yeah.
days. Ooh.
Yeah. When we get past this whole pandemic stuff, y'all, she's gonna come. We're gonna have her come. And we're just gonna have a big party. We look forward to that.
Yeah.
Listen, Miss Michelle, I want to thank you. Thank you for those encouraging words. I want to thank you again for taking time out of your
Oh man.
schedule
Of course. Thank
to
you for
sit with me
having me.
tonight.
We got to do
Yeah,
this again.
we'll
You know.
listen. All right, y'all heard that. We're going to do it again.
Yeah.
We only just really touched the surface on tonight. There's so much more that we can talk about. That I think will be blessing and empowering to you all. So y'all know, Boss Up, this is just the first leg of this particular series. And so we're going to do Boss Up again a few more times throughout this year because I've actually had some folk asking me about that. So y'all look out, we'll be putting it out there. And Miss Michelle has basically said we're gonna do it again. So y'all get ready. As a matter of fact,
you're
maybe we
good
can
at this.
plan it. Maybe we can plan it for sometime around the time that her book drops again.
Sure,
I know she'll
yeah.
be
I
doing,
love
yeah.
that. We can do a Q&A with some folks with
Do a
your
Q&A like
congregation.
we
Yeah.
do a
Yeah,
live.
we'll do a Q&A.
Done.
Yeah.
Done deal.
Okay.
All right, y'all heard it. We're gonna do that. Okay, it's gonna be a Q&A. We're gonna do a live Q&A, and allow you all to ask some questions about the book. That would be great.
Amazing.
Okay.
All
Well,
right, man.
listen, y'all. I want to say to you all just a couple of things. Check out Michelle. You can catch her on Instagram. She's on Instagram at Michelle. All right, Michelle Williams. And then she's also on Facebook at Michelle Williams. You can go to believe by Michelle.com.
Yeah.
All right, order y'all some candles. Some of you brothers need to get some candles, you know what I mean?
All right.
And
So your house
set
gonna
it
be
up.
smelling like Fritos. You want to smell like believe.
Smell like believe, all right? And each candle comes with it. Each candle, as they release the line, will come with a different affirmation. That's what I love. Okay, I did my homework.
Oh yes. That is so true. So my most popular fragrance that I have right now, it's called Affirm, and it's musky, amber, and rose. It's one of my favorites. When I just look at it, I burn it myself, and I just remember what I affirm myself, and I just also remember how God affirms me and how God sees me.
Listen, that is exactly what we need, is to be affirmed. And so I want y'all to check that out. All right. Again, check out our podcast, Checking In with Michelle, every Tuesday. Is that Eastern time, or is it Central Standard?
Right now actually it's Eastern, but the podcast just kind of it could be midnight, what some people still consider to be Monday night, but every Tuesday I drop a new episode.
Awesome. Awesome. So listen, she's dropping a new episode every Tuesday. Y'all can check it out. Of course, with podcasts, they're on demand, so you can get it
Yeah.
anytime that you want to get a hold of it. Miss Michelle, thank you. I keep wanting to call you Tanitra,
That's
TT.
all right. That's how you
Um,
know me. It's all right.
that's how I know we family, y'all.
Yes,
Real
sir.
talk.
We are. So
Um,
please give your family my love if they are watching. Just hello to you. I love you. Miss you guys. And hope y'all are proud
yes.
of my brother, Pastor Steve Goldsmith.
Likewise, I hope that y'all are proud of my sister,
Yeah.
Michelle Williams. Listen, thank all of you for tuning in tonight. If you're in the Houston area, this coming Saturday, I want to invite you. If you know someone, we came off this winter storm. If you know somebody that's in need of some food, our church has a partnership with the Houston Food Bank, and so this coming Saturday, we will be offering a food distribution starting at 10 a.m. At 130 Atascocita Road, right here in Humble, Texas. We've been doing food distributions in partnership with the Houston Food Bank for a couple of months now, because we don't believe that anybody should go without the bare necessities and especially food. We'll offer another one next month, and so if y'all know somebody, please tell them to get there to Journey of Faith. 10 a.m. To 12 p.m. We will be serving the community. So I want to invite you all to do that. Also, you can join us on Sunday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, for our virtual worship service. Listen, if you enjoy our ministry, I invite you. It is because of your generosity that we are able to provide um, forums and worship experiences. And so I want to invite you. You can tap into a couple of our ways of giving. You can go to our church website, faithjourneyumc.org, and you can also see our multiple ways for giving. I want to thank you in advance for your kindness and your generosity to help support the mission of our church, which is to make disciples who will make more disciples, who will make more disciples and more disciples. So we thank you all for tuning in on tonight. I want to say on next week, we will return to our regular Bible study with this Focus Forward series. And so I want you all to boss up and have some real conversation with yourself. Look at what you're committing to. Make a commitment to stand up. Make a commitment to focus in on what God has for you, God's purpose, His plan for your life, and then I want you to execute. I want you to move forward. Let's be focused forward on what God has for us. I love you. I'll talk to y'all later. God bless you. Peace.